Assalamualaikum and hi. In this video, we're going to go through the solutions for Java exercise number 10, where we focus on programming errors. For the first questions is asked you to explain the three main types of programming errors. So we know that there are three main types here: syntax errors, runtime errors, and also the logical errors. So for syntax error, we know that this is an error where the code is not written according to the rules of the programming language. Depends on, what are the programming language that you're working on. In this case, will be Java. So it's something very similar to the grammatical mistake in a language. For example, in English, whether you're using the correct semicolon, comma, exclamations mark for specific purpose. So in the context of Java, for example, we say if you miss a semicolon at the end of a statement, that will be a syntax error. The second type of error is the runtime errors, where we say that these errors occur during the executions of a program, hence the term runtime. Okay, so for example, will be the errors when we try to access invalid array indexes. I'll give you one example. Let's say you have an array with 5 elements and you're just doing a kind of like a wrong declarations of your for loop. Then you access up until 6 elements. So that is a runtime error. You're still able to run the programs. You're still able to compile the programs, but you're not able to run the programs. And for this type of error, it often results in the program is crashing or behaving unexpectedly. Finally, we have the logical errors, which is the errors that is the much more or the most difficult to identify. We say that logical errors is actually the flaws in the logic of the program. So we'll still be able to compile the programs, run the programs, okay? So it says here that this type of errors don't prevent the program from running, but it causes it to produce incorrect results or unexpected output. For example, you might be using a wrong formula. The one that we have mentioned all this while is, for example, if you want to find the average of the 5 subjects, marks for 5 subjects, but you're just dividing it with 4, okay? You can still compile the program, you can still run the programs, but you'll get the incorrect result. You get a result or you get an output, but the output is incorrect because you should divide that by 5 when you want to find an average of 5 subjects. So these are the 3 main types of errors. Now let's move on to the second sections where the exercise asks you to identify the errors within the given codes and then try to identify whether these are syntax, runtime, or logical errors. So we're going to start with the first one, which is the number compare here. So we have this public class number compare, and then we have public static main string argument. So we know that we need to have this void in the main method, right? So it should be public static void main string argument. So this is what we call as the syntax error, right? Because we didn't declare the void there, okay? Then moving on, we have this integer one number equal to 10. So basically there are 2 errors here. The first is we declare the wrong variable. Here we know that for variable, we cannot start with a number. In this case, you can see a 1 here. So we need to remove that, or if you like, we can put that at the end. Okay, so since we have changed this to number 1, then we will need to change this as well to number 1. Okay. That's the first error. Again, this is also syntax error. And then we will need to have the semicolon, remember? So we have 2 syntax errors here. First is we cannot, again, declare a variable with a number at the beginning, and then we need to end every statement with a semicolon. Now we have the if-else statement here. If number 1 is greater than 5, I open brace here. So that's the benefits of using NetBeans, in fact. So we can see here, when I click on this brace, I can see the close brace is here. But the problem is we know that for if-else statement, you need to have the proper open and close. So we have this if here, and we open the brace here. We need to close it here, okay? And we need to open it again, and we need to close it here, okay? So you can see here, and I'm going to do proper indentation for this one. Okay, so here I'm going to fix it as well. So you can see clearly, this is my class. I open and close it here. This is my main. I open and close it here. And for the if else, I close it with a total of 4 braces. So this is another type of syntax error that we have here. Okay, so to just have a quick check on this one, we're going to save it and run the file. So you should be able to run it without any problems. So you should be able to see the number is greater than 5. So it takes kind of like one of more project will compile with error. That's fine. So you see, we just run this file here. The number is greater than 5. So that's for the first questions, 10.2.1. Now we move on to 10.2.2 here, which is the array sum, right? Okay. So we have the public class array sum here. We have public static void main string arguments. Nothing wrong with that. If we look into that, or even if you look into the name of the class, you know that we are now dealing with array. So for array, there are a few things that you need to fix here. So we know that in order for us to declare an array, we need to have the square brackets, okay? At the same time, I'm just going to fix that indentations as well. So integer, here you need to have a square brackets. Again, that will be a syntax error, okay? And for the values, we will need to use open and close brace rather than the square brackets, okay? So we have 2 syntax error here. The first is, again, the square brackets, and here you need to use the open and close brace. We need to initialize it as integer sum equal to 0, that's fine. Then we have a loop here for integer I equal to 1, I less than numbers dot length, I plus plus, and then we do a sum here, and we do system dot out print line, okay? So here for integer I equal to 1, I less than numbers dot length, we want to find the length of the array. So it should be length without the open and close, or without the parentheses, because we're referring to the length of the what we call that the array is not the length of the string. If it's length of the string, then we will need to use the parentheses. Okay, that will be one error that will be considered as the syntax error as well. Okay. And then we have sum plus equals numbers. Okay, so number here, because we are going to access each of the elements within the number, so I will need to use a square brackets. I need to put I in these numbers here. Okay, so again, that will be a syntax error. Okay, looks good, but there's another flaw. But well, we are going to run this first, then we're going to look into the problems. Okay, so what we've seen here is all the syntax errors. I'm going to run this, okay, and you should be able to get the result. The sum is 14, is that correct? So 9 plus 3, that will be 12. 12 plus 2, that will be 14, plus 1, it should be 15. Okay, so it looks like we have a kind of like a logical error here, because we're able to compile the programs, we're able to run the programs, but the outcome is actually inaccurate or incorrect here. So what's the problem here is we know that the index for arrays always start with 0. So we need to change the integer I equal to 0. So basically this is the logical error, because we are kind of like accessing the wrong numbers of elements within an array. So here integer I equal to 0, we will need to fix that. If I'm going to save it and run it again, you should be able to see 15 here, right, which is the correct answer. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, the correct answer should be 15. Right, finally, find max value. Let's look into this. We can see from NetBeans here, you have a kind of like underline here. So we have the array, which I think we initialize it correctly. You have the square brackets, you have the open and close brace. You initialize integer max as 0. Okay, we're going to look into that. There's problems by declaring or initialize it as 0. Okay, here we have the for loop for integer I equal to 0 is correct, because I we know that the index always starts with 0. I less than numbers dot length, right? We need to put in dot length here. Okay, and then I plus plus. So again, this will be a syntax error here. Okay, And we want to find a maximum value. So integer numbers I is greater than max, and max is equal to numbers I. We close it, and then we do a system.out.print line. Even there's no red lines here, but we know that this is actually incorrect, right? Because we know that from here we want to print the max, okay? But we put in the double quotations here. So if you run the program, I think you can still run the program without any problems. I'm going to run find max value. I can just run the file. You'll see the largest number is plus max. So that's the problem here, because we want to show the max value. So we should just open and close it here and then do a plus. So that's the proper string concatenation. So we have one syntax error here. I'm just going to put it here, syntax error. And if I'm going to run it again, then I would say the largest number is 0. So is the output correct or incorrect? Well, we know that this is actually incorrect because of, if we look into the array here, what will be the maximum value? The maximum value will be -1, right? Because they're all the minus number. The problem here is because we initialize the max as 0. The practice that we have done all this while, considering that we're not dealing with negative numbers. But now, since we have an array with negative numbers, this is actually not the best practice to do this, because if we declare the max as 0, and if compare if all the negative numbers, then of course the max will be 0 here. So you need to assume that, okay, because we are going to do a loop anyway within here. So we need to assume that, for example, you can do something like this. Integer max is actually equal to numbers 0, which is the first elements within the arrays. And then with that, then only we go to the loop and we check each of the elements one by one. So now if you run this, you should be able to get the correct answer, which is -1. So here we have logical errors. Okay, why we say it's a logical error, because just now, even when I declare the max as 0, I can still compile and run the programs, but we get the incorrect incorrect output. Okay, so we will need to fix that, right? So I think that's it for Java exercise number 10, where we focus mainly on the different types of errors and how to fix these errors. If you have any questions, please put your comments at the bottom of this video. Thank you very much.